Number 1. About the different sages.
When Cho Song-kwang visited Sote-san for the first time, Sote-san said,
You seem to have qualities different from those of ordinary people. What is your faith?
Song-kwang replied, I am an elder at a Protestant church and have been worshipping God for several decades. Sote-san said,
You say that you have worshipped God for several decades. So tell me, where is God?
We say that God is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, so there is nowhere he does not exist.
Then do you regularly see him, listen to his words, or receive his teachings?
So far I have not seen or talked to him.
If that is the case, can you say that you are truly an intimate disciple of Jesus?
What shall I do to enable me to meet God and receive his teachings?
You may accomplish this by practicing with dedication and becoming a disciple who truly knows Jesus.
Song-kwang asked again. In the Bible, it is said that Jesus will return towards the end of the world and will come like a thief in the night, but many signs of his return will appear at that time. Will there really be a day when he returns? Sote-san said,
Sages are not deceitful. If you practice with dedication and your spiritual mind opens, then you will also understand Jesus' coming and going.
Song-kwang replied, I have been waiting for a long time for a great teacher who would give me personal guidance. Meeting you today, my mind is satisfied, and I would like to become your disciple right away. But at the same time, I have qualms of conscience because it seems like a betrayal of my faith. Sote-san said,
If a Christian becomes a disciple who truly knows Jesus, he will also come to understand what I am doing. And if one becomes a disciple who truly understands me, he will come to understand what Jesus accomplished. Often people perceive gaps between different religions and become hostile to other religions. However, those with real understanding know that these religions have different names merely according to their time and place, and come to view them all as belonging to a single household. It is important that you use your own discretion whether you stay or go.
Song-kwang rose to his feet, bowed, and vowed anew to become his disciple. Sote-san approved and said,
Even after you have become my disciple, you will be a true disciple of mine only when your own reverence for God grows stronger. Number 2, worldly pleasure versus heavenly pleasure.
Sote-san was visiting the agricultural department, and after viewing very weak and skinny pigs in a pen, he asked for an explanation. Yi Tong-an replied, We were feeding them barley that had gotten a bit spoiled during this year's rainy season, and they were getting fatter every day. A few days ago, we began to feed them chaff again, but they won't give up their acquired taste for barley, so they lost their appetite. They're getting skinnier every day. Sote-san said,
This is a living scripture. The suffering of the rich who become poor, or the powerful who lose their rank, are no different than the suffering of these pigs. Since time immemorial, all sages have regarded wealth and honor with detachment. They did not become overly happy when wealth and honor came their way, nor overly concerned when wealth and honor left. In ancient times, the Emperor Sun received the rank of the Son of Heaven after doing such lowly jobs as cultivating the fields and making pottery. But he never became arrogant. Shakyamuni Buddha willingly left his destined position as a king and left the palace, leaving his household life behind. He did not retain even the slightest attachment. How equanimous were their attitudes toward wealth and honor, and how admirable was their power to transcend suffering and happiness. If you aspire to the way and want to learn how to be a sage, do not blindly pursue comfort, joy, or power, but rather be weary of them. Even if you unavoidably find yourself in such circumstances, do not let yourself become attached or corrupted by them. You will then be able to enjoy eternal comfort, eternal honor, and eternal power. Number 3, forgiveness.
There was a young man living in a village near Sotesan who had a spiritual awakening. He recognized his past faults, became Sotesan's student, and vowed to act as a decent human being. Several months later, Sotesan returned to Yongsan to find the young man had gone back to his old life. The young man felt ashamed that he had failed to keep his vow, so he avoided Sotesan. One day, they happened to meet each other on the road. Sotesan took the opportunity to ask the young man,
Why is it that you haven't come to see me, even once?
The young man said, Because I feel guilty. Sotesan said,
What do you feel guilty about?
The young man said, My vow to you ended up deceiving you. You are a great sage. How could I not feel guilty in front of you? Please forgive me. Sotesan replied,
All this time you have avoided me, squandered all your assets, and placed yourself in compromising situations. You haven't done anything to me and do not need my forgiveness. If your actions were going to harm me, then you would be right to apologize to me or to avoid me. But in fact, you are the only one who will take the consequences of your actions. Right now, you may think that you deceived me, but in reality, you have deceived yourself. From this point on, do not avoid me, but work hard instead to regulate your own mind again. Number 4, material civilization and moral culture.
Sotesan said,
We live conveniently and profit greatly from the benefits of material civilization and moral culture. Thanks to these benefits, we cannot help but to be grateful to the many inventors and teachers in our world. However, material civilization mainly provides comforts for our physical lives. Its benefits manifest quickly, but its merit is limited. Ethical culture shapes people's minds, which are by nature formless. Its benefits are slow, but its merit is unlimited. How can the benefit of cultural ethics' ability to deliver all sentient beings and to cure the world be compared to that of material civilization? How can its radiance be limited to this world alone? It is greatly regrettable that people of our time seek the obvious benefits of material civilization, while very few seek ethical culture. Number 5, cause and effect.
Teko asked, In the Nirvana Sutra it says, if we wish to know about our past life, we need to understand that it is what we have received in this present life. If we wish to know about our future life, we need to understand that it is what we create in the present life. When we observe people receiving blessings or punishments in the present life, we see those who deserve to receive punishments for the way they use their minds but live pleasurable lives as part of rich and distinguished families, while those whose minds are wholesome and who should certainly receive blessings, instead receive miserable suffering in a poor family. Can we still say that the principle of cause and effect is correct? Sote-san said,
That is why all the Buddhas and enlightened masters warn us to hold our final thoughts in a pure and clear fashion. Those whose minds are unwholesome but live a wealthy life in the present are those who in their past lives accumulated merit by doing good deeds when they were young, but at the end of their lives fell into unwholesome thoughts by thinking there was no point in performing good. Those whose minds are good but are living a miserable life in the present are those who performed unwholesome deeds unintentionally as youths in their past lives, but repented late in their lives and returned to the good. In this way, the final thought in our present life becomes the initial thought in our future life. Number 6, the so-called little things.
Sote-san always kept his belongings neatly arranged, with everything in its proper place, so that he could find them even in the dark. He kept the temple grounds so well that there was not even a single dust particle out of place. He said,
If one's personal belongings are messy, one's mind will be messy. Also, if one's temple grounds are dirty, one's mind ground will be untidy as well. If the mind is lazy and unclear, then nothing can be achieved. How can we neglect these so-called little things? Number 7, the essential discourse on commanding our original nature.
1. Believe not in the person alone, but in the Dharma.
2. Ponder the dharmas taught by various people and believe in the very best of them.
3. Having been born as humans among all the 4 forms of birth, we should develop a love of learning.
4. A knowledgeable person should not neglect learning due to a sense of already accomplished knowledge.
5. Do not indulge in wine and sexual misconduct, but use the time to inquire into truth.
6. Do not cling to your biases.
7. When responding to any matter, maintain a respectful state of mind and be vigilant for the rise of covetous greed, as if it were a lion.
8. Teach yourself day by day, hour by hour.
9. If things go wrong, do not blame others, but examine yourself.
10. Should you learn of another's fault, do not reveal it, but use it instead to perceive your own faults. Number 8, best chanting.
A student asked, which mantras should I recite, and which method should I apply to open my mind and heart so that I may quickly attain the way? Sote-san said,
Great practice does not depend on a particular mantra, but rather on a person's sincerity. Let me tell you a couple of stories. Long ago, there was an illiterate peddler of straw sandals who was inspired to cultivate the way. So he asked a sage about the way. The sage answered, Chukshim Shipul, mind is Buddha. But the illiterate peddler thought he heard Chipshin Sepul, 3 pairs of straw sandals. For many years he recited 3 pairs of straw sandals and pondered over it until one day his mind and heart suddenly opened and he realized that mind is Buddha. Another practitioner went out to buy some meat and said to the butcher, "Cut me a piece from the clean part." The butcher thrust his knife into the meat and asked, "Which part is clean and which part dirty?" Upon hearing that question, he attained the way. These anecdotes clearly show that attaining the way does not depend on a place, a time, or a mantra. However, since we have our own designated mantras, our merit will increase even more effectively if we resort to them during our dedicated practice. Number 9. All water collects in one place.
While Sote-san was staying at Pongnae Hermitage, a heavy rain fell, which made a big waterfall descend from a rocky cliff, and all the valley streams flowed vigorously. He watched the sight for a long time and finally said,
"The water flowing down these many valleys is traveling through different courses now, but in the end, it will finally collect in a single place. This elucidates the saying, all dharmas return to one." Number 10. What is most indispensable?
Sote-san asked Kim Yong-shin,
What is the most indispensable thing for a person living in the secular world?
Yong-shin answered, I assume things related to clothing, food, and shelter are the most indispensable. Sote-san asked,
Which is the most indispensable of the subjects you learned at school?
Yong-shin replied, the subject of spiritual cultivation was the most indispensable. Sote-san answered,
You are right. For the life of the body, clothing, food, and shelter are important things. But for practice, moral cultivation is important. This is why clothing, food, and shelter, as well as spiritual cultivation, become the foundation for both life and practice. However, the subject of spiritual cultivation that is now taught in schools is insufficient in its methodology. Unless a religion advocates the practice of cultivating the mind, one will not be able to appreciate the full importance of spiritual cultivation. You should constantly bear in mind that the study of the way is central to all studies and is the foundation of all practice. Number 11. Skillful way to guide.
One day, Sote-san visited the Shilsang monastery. He witnessed 2 elderly monks harshly scolding a young novice who, they said, would not obey their instruction to practice meditation. They said to the master, a person like him could not be delivered even if 1,000 Buddhas appeared right now. He's useless. Sote-san smiled and said,
Though you reverend monks have shown concern for him, you are also preventing him from ever practicing meditation.
One of the senior monks asked, why do you say that? Sote-san replied,
By demanding that a person does something he doesn't want to do, you are making him dislike it forever. If I told you that inside the rocks of that mountain there's gold, and I demanded that you crack open those rocks and extract the gold, would you trust my words and immediately start mining?
The elderly monks thought for a while and said, it would be hard to believe you and immediately start mining. Sote-san said,
In the same way, if I demand that you go mining without first gaining your trust, what would you do? You would most likely think my words are fabricated. When a young student has no interest in meditation or any such aspiration, if you demand that he practice meditation, It will make him presume meditation is also a fabrication. Once he thinks in this way, that would keep him from ever practicing it. Your approach is not a skillful means of guiding a person.
One of the senior monks said, "If this is the case, then what is the skillful means of guiding him?" Sote-san said,
Knowing that there is gold inside the rock, if you first go and mine it yourself, and then make splendid use of it, people will want to know how you became wealthy. If you tell them the details to suit the degrees of their desire to know, how gratefully they would then go and mine the gold. Wouldn't this be a skillful means of guiding others?
The senior monks sat up straight and said, "The master's method of guidance is truly magnificent."
Number 12, the sound and proper way.
One day, a student was thatching the roof of a house at the One Buddhism headquarters. He laid out the straw, but did not tie it down carefully with rope. Sate-san said,
If a strong wind blows in the middle of the night, won't all the work you did be for nothing?
but the student replied, "The wind in this area is rarely so severe," and left the roof as it was. That night, a strong wind arose unexpectedly and blew away the newly thatched roof. The disciple was mortified and distressed. He said, "Great Master, you foresaw with your supernatural powers what would occur and warned me about it. But in my folly, I refused to listen, and now I have met with this disaster." Sote-san said,
You didn't listen to me when I instructed you in a sound and proper way. But it is even worse that you now call me a psychic. If you think of me in that way, you will not learn the Dharma of the Great Way from me, but will only be on the lookout for psychic powers. This will only put you on a road to nowhere. You must correct your thinking. From now on, do everything the sound and proper way. Number 13, who can learn completely?
Sote-san said,
Though the spring breeze blows impartially, without discrimination, only living trees can receive its energy and grow. Likewise, sages teach the Dharma impartially, without any thought of self. Yet only those people with belief are ready to receive the Dharma completely. Number 14, everything is of our mind's creation.
Sote-san came to a meditation session and said,
Inui has now achieved such great clarity of the mind that she neglects her personal business in order to attend to Dharma meetings and join meditation sessions. Instead of giving her an award for her devoted faith, I would like to allot this hour to her so that she may ask any questions that are on her mind.
Inuiwa asked, "If someone asks me what we teach and learn in our community, how should I reply?" Sote-san answered,
Buddhism originally teaches us to awaken and understand the principle all things are created by the mind. You may answer that we teach and learn the same principle. Once we know it, we will also discover the principle of neither arising nor ceasing, and the karmic principle of cause and effect.
She asked again, "After we learn this principle, how should we practice?" Sote-san answered,
We should keep our minds free from disturbances, delusions, and wrongdoings when facing sensory conditions. Number 15, timeless meditation.
"Zen is a practice that leads to the achievement of freedom of mind through awakening to our own nature. which is originally free from discrimination or attachment. Since time immemorial, those who have been determined to achieve the Great Way have all practiced Zen.
If people intend to practice genuine Zen, they first should take true emptiness as the substance and marvelous existence as the function. Externally, be unmoving like Mount Te when in contact with myriad sensory conditions. And internally, keep the mind unsullied like empty space. Let the mind function so that it is not active even in action and not resting even at rest. If we do this, then there will be no discrimination that is separate from absorption, so that the functioning of the six sense organs will accord with the original nature of emptiness and calm, numinous awareness. This is what is called Mahayana meditation, and it is the method of practice in which we progress in concert through the threefold practice.
Therefore, it says in Sutra, give rise to a mind that even while responding does not dwell anywhere. This is precisely the great Dharma of practice that remains unmoved amid myriad sensory conditions. This Dharma may seem extremely difficult, but if only we come to understand in detail the methods of its practice, then even a farmer wielding a hoe can practice Zen, as can a carpenter wielding a hammer, a clerk using an abacus, and an official seeing to an administrative matter. However, for people who are first beginning to practice Zen, the mind is not easily controlled according to their wishes. It is like training an ox. If the reins of the mind are dropped, even for a moment, it will instantly harm one's commitment to the way.
Therefore, if you keep exerting yourself without letting go of that spirit which is ready to fight to the bitter end, no matter how alluring the sensory conditions may be, the mind gradually will become tamed, and you will reach a state where the mind will do what you wish. Each and every time you are in contact with a sensory condition, do not forget to keep the thought in mind that an opportunity for practice has arrived, always assessing whether or not you are affected by that sensory condition.
Once there is a gradual increase in instances of behavior in which the mind does what you wish, you may, from time to time, let yourself be put in situations that you normally would find extremely attractive or abhorrent. If the mind is moved as before, then your commitment to the way is immature. But if it is unmoved, then you will know that this is proof that your commitment to the way is ripening. However, at the very time that you realize that the mind is unmoving, do not let down your guard, for it is unmoving only through your employing the mental powers rather than naturally unmoving. The mind will be well tamed only when it remains unmoved when left unguarded.
If you continue for a long time to practice Zen, put an end to all the defilements, and achieve freedom of mind, you become centered like an iron pillar and defended from the outside like a stone wall. Neither wealth, nor status, nor honor or glory can coax the mind. No one can make your mind submit through the use of weapons or authority. You will never be impeded or obstructed in the practice of any of the dharmas. While residing in this dusty world, you will consistently attain hundreds and thousands of samadhis.
Once you reach this stage, the entire world will be transformed into the one ultimate realm of reality, and right and wrong, good and evil, and all the defiled and pure dharmas will become like the single taste of ghee. This state is called the gateway of non-duality. Freedom from birth and death, liberation from the cycle of rebirths, and the ultimate bliss of the pure land all emerge through this gateway.
Recently, groups that practice Zen think that Zen is extremely difficult. There are many who hold that it is impossible to do for someone who has a family or who pursues an occupation, and that you can only practice Zen by entering into the mountains and sitting quietly. This view derives from ignorance of the great Dharma, in which all Dharmas are non-dual. If one can only practice Zen while sitting, but not while standing, this would be a sickly Zen indeed. How could this become the great Dharma that can deliver all sentient beings? Moreover, our original nature is not merely limited to emptiness and calmness alone. If we practice Zen like a lifeless log, we would not be practicing the Zen that disciplines our true nature, but instead we would make ourselves into an unstable and helpless person. Therefore, even when involved in a disturbing situation, the mind should be undisturbed. Even when involved in greed-creating sensory conditions, the mind should be unmoving. This is true Zen and true meditation.
To reiterate the main principle of timeless Zen,
When the six sense organs are free from activity, remove distracted thoughts and nurture the one mind.
when the six sense organs are involved in activity, remove the wrong and nurture the right.
Number 16. Do I eat too fast or talk too much?
Sote-san said to a student who ate too fast and talked too much.
Eating a meal or speaking a single word is also practice. If one eats too fast or too much, one is likely to become ill. If one says things that are unnecessary or that deviate from the right way, then misfortune will occur. Can we then be mindless when eating a meal or when speaking a word, even if it is a trivial matter? A practitioner must see every situation as an opportunity to practice and take pleasure in always responding appropriately. You must set your heart upon this practice. Number 17, the value of dedication.
A laywoman asked Sote-san, I would like to perform purification rituals and offer prayers like ministers do, but I must work and take care of my family, so I do not have the time or freedom to accomplish this. What should I do? Sote-san said,
Purifying one's mind is no different for either the ordained or the householder. Just purify your own mind and sincerely offer your prayers. Then there will be absolutely no difference in its efficacy. It will depend only on the degree of your dedication. Number 18, seeing the past and the future.
While Sote-san was staying at Pongne Hermitage, the wretched shriek of a wild boar that was shot by a hunter was so pitiful that it prompted him to say,
One's gain is another's loss.
He also said,
Witnessing the death of this wild boar, I can surmise its past deeds. And witnessing this hunter killing the wild boar today, I can also surmise what the hunter will face in the future. Number 19, how much do you miss me?
Sote-san asked the students,
When you have not seen me for a long time, how much do you miss me?
The students replied, Intensely. Sote-san said,
Undoubtedly so. But understand, that no matter how filial children are to their parents, it is hard to compare that to the parents' concern for their children. Likewise, no matter how devoted students are to their teacher, it is hard to compare that to the teacher's concern for them. If a disciple's belief and yearning for their teacher is half as much as the teacher's love and concern for them, then the Dharma will definitely be transmitted. Number 20, the cost of receiving offerings.
Sote-san said,
There was once a meditation master who had many students and lay supporters, making sure that his life was comfortable. Even so, he planted several fruit trees and tended them himself to support one of his students with the profit he made from them. The rest of the students asked him why, and the meditation master replied,
"This fellow did not make any merit in his past life, nor is he likely to offer benefits to others in the present life. Supporting him with the grain and money that people donate to make merit would cause him to accumulate even more debts. What he should get is free support in this one lifetime. But when the time comes for him to repay, he would have to go through much suffering as an ox or a horse over many lifetimes. Out of affection, I support him in my leisure time so as to lessen his debt."
The meditation master's handling of this matter is a great Dharma instruction for those who live a communal life. You should not dismiss this anecdote lightly. If, with your spirit, body, or material goods, you devote yourself in equal measure for others' sakes, then there would be no harm in accepting people's offerings. However, if you take offerings from people while handling just your own affairs, then you are a person who will incur great debts and must expect to go through much hard work over many lifetimes. Generally, however, those who care for other people do not like to receive others' offerings. But those who are concerned only with their own affairs do like to receive others' offerings. You must examine yourselves every moment and be cautious not to become a person who incurs great debts from people.
21. Listening to a teacher's recommendation. In 1925, after Iksan 1 Buddhism headquarters was first established, the members invested in a taffy-making enterprise in the attempt to sustain their community. Sotaizan always advised his various students, "In today's world, people's minds are not well trained. So be sure to lock the front gate and guard your possessions so nothing gets stolen. If we are robbed, not only do we lose our possessions, but we are also letting others commit transgressions. We must be careful." He then provided them with a lock. However, due to their inexperience, the students weren't careful in taking precautions, and one night all their taffy molds and candy were stolen. The students could not get over their feelings of shame and anxiety. Sotaizan said, "Don't worry. The thief who visited us last night was a great teacher for you. You may have believed I was the most respected teacher, yet my warning was not enough to keep you alert. From now on, even if I say nothing, you will be extra careful. Consider the few things you lost last night as the tuition you paid to the teacher."
Number 22. What are we learning?
Sote-san asked his students the following question.
If someone were to ask you what you are learning here, what would you answer?
One of the students said, "I would answer that we are learning the three great powers." Another student said, "I would answer that we are learning the essential way of human life." After hearing conflicting answers from several other people, Sote-san said.
Although all your answers are applicable, I will elaborate a bit, so you must listen carefully. As a rule, whatever answer one gives should be appropriate to the questioner's character and attitude at that time. But to answer in general terms, I would say that I am teaching how to use our mind. To answer more specifically, I teach the knowledgeable how to use knowledge, the powerful how to use power, the wealthy how to use wealth, the resentful how to live a life of gratitude, those who lack merit how to make merit, those who live a life dependent on others to rely on self-power, the reluctant to learn how to learn, those reluctant to teach how to teach, those lacking the desire to benefit others how to dedicate themselves for the benefit of all. In brief, I teach others how to make the most of all their talents, material wealth, and surroundings in accordance with the right way. Number 23, one-pointed mind.
Yang Tushin asked Sote-san, "We have been trying our best to follow your instructions not to be distracted by one thing while doing another, and to always maintain a peaceful and undivided state of mind whatever we're doing. But recently, while sewing, I also had to prepare a herbal medicine, and I ended up burning the medicine because I was fully engrossed in my sewing. If I were to attend closely to the medicine while I was sewing, that would mean that something distracted me while I was doing something else. On the other hand, if I were to pay close attention only to my sewing and ignore the medicine, I would have to throw out the medicine again. In such a situation, what would be the correct path of practice?" Sote-san replied,
If at that time you had to attend to both preparing the medicine and sewing, then both of these duties were your responsibility, and you should have performed them with all sincerity and dedication. Fulfilling well that responsibility reflects a perfect one-pointed mind and true practice. But if you say that you were focusing only on one of those duties, that would not be perfect one-pointedness, but would be a fragmented and negligent state of mind. Even if you are attending to 10 or 20 duties at once, as long as you deal with them with full responsibility, it will not be distraction, but an undivided state of mind and an essential method of practice in action. But if you are idly thinking about things that are not your concern, idly trying to hear and see things that are not your concern, meddling in things that are not your concern, and thinking of one thing while doing another, and are thereby unable to bring an end to endless wandering thoughts, that is something that practitioners should scrupulously avoid. To pay attention to various things with full responsibility will bring no hindrance at all to your training in one-pointed mind, even if you take care of thousands of tasks a day. Number 24, the freezing laundry.
Whenever Sote-san visited Seoul, he stayed at the Seoul Won Buddhist temple. Yi Kong-jo usually attended to his needs and listened to his Dharma talks. Cho Chang-guan would prepare the meals and clean, so she rarely had a chance to listen to the talks. She would constantly think about ways to listen to the master. Even when she was cooking in the kitchen, she would sometimes take the firewood out of the fireplace and listen to him speaking. She could not enter the room where Sote-san was, because she feared she smelled from all the cooking and that she might burn the food if she got distracted. So she had to be satisfied with eavesdropping. Sometimes, when others were studying in a warm room, Cho Chang-guan had to stay outside and do laundry in the freezing water. During the winter solstice, she ate some red bean porridge and was on her way to do the laundry when it started to snow. Her hands felt so frozen that she repeatedly blew on them, tucked them under her arms, took them out again to wash the clothes. By the time she was finished, her hands felt like they were about to break. She was walking back with tears in her eyes when Sote-san opened the door and exclaimed,
I can feel the cold inside this room. It must be freezing outside.
Sote-san quickly took the basket of laundry from her. He followed her to the kitchen, took her cold hands in his warm hands, and said,
Even if you had committed many transgressions throughout many lifetimes, by doing this work now for the good of the many, you have lightened that burden. Let your conscience be clear and your mind unhindered.
Cho Chang-guan cried at his comforting words. Later on, whenever she faced challenges and felt overwhelmed, she thought back to that moment and said to herself, I am paying back the many misdeeds of my previous life, and thus consoled herself.